judges. There are a lot of companies in the world that actually do mergers or acquisition in their real life. And me as a representative at the House, I totally disagree with this motion, because by mergers or acquisition are actually beneficial, because it's making easier for the user to actually access the internet from places to another, and also gives advantage towards the tech companies. And I'll explain furthermore in my argument. But first, I'm going to rebut what the government side have already stated about this motion. And firstly, they stated about it's hard for Instagram to compete against Facebook, and furthermore, it makes better for the deal to compare or having to compete with those giant social media agencies. So what they're stating is actually means that it's better for the little company to actually merge towards the big companies, because it will make a deal, and it's better to make a deal compared having to compete to a giant social media companies itself. So what they've stated are actually contradict towards what they support, and moreover, it's supporting our side, and therefore it is truly irrelevant for them to bother. Because making a deal with these big agency or companies that they won't have to compete, just like what she stated, that they don't have to compete and create a stable income, therefore it is good, which is why, thanks to the affirmative side of the House, they already proved that one of the best things about these mergers or acquisition is that it could create a best healthy competition, and also have proven that mergers and acquisition are good and do not need to be regret. And the affirmative side also stated that the dominant companies in the result of mergers are acquisition itself, and it could control the entire market. So they stated that these kind of big companies or dominant companies can to control upon the entire market, but they did not explain why this is even bad for these big companies to actually control this entire market is a bad thing, and they did not explain that. And the affirmative side failed to prove that failed to prove that, because they stated about one argument about it is that consumers rely on one product, and the reason this is a simply weak reason, and I can simply rebut what they're stating, because it does not mean it gives harm for the consumers, right? By relying on one product or by relying on one companies to actually do social media does not mean it gives harm towards the consumer to actually trusting this kind of companies more than the others, right? What is the bad in that? What is the bad is actually relying one thing? Why is the bad thing that we can trust one thing that the companies have done? The companies that they trust for them, the social media, and those companies such as Facebook, why is it wrong to trust those big companies? Because they give the best actions, right? They give the best interest towards the consumers more than the other companies. What is it bad for them to actually rely on one product? And what they're stating is actually really a weak argument to support this kind of dominant companies who to control upon this entire market is actually a bad thing and really unacceptable. And now moving on to the background on why this motion came up, just like what the affirmative side have already stated, there are a lot of merger and acquisition that happen in real life, and it gives a lot of benefits, of course, and gives a lot of good advantages towards the companies. And there are many people that think this in the status quo right now, that it is really wrong to actually truly create this. It will create a big mess and also bad for the consumer itself. And which is why this motion has actually came up, and I really support this mergers and acquisition to not be regret at all. And moving on to my goal in this debate, so we wanted to prove to you, ladies and gentlemen, that mergers and acquisition are actually beneficial by stating that tech companies will create a better innovation and as a resources, and also an advertisement for the little companies and an income for them. And for the society, it will create a better link for the internet towards the internet, and the right to have the freedom towards the consumer itself. My first argument related to this motion is that they could create a better right for their consumers, and we see in moral that this is create the best decision for the society itself. And I made this as my psychological argument because when those tech companies do mergers and acquisitions, this means that they linked from one application to others, right? And resulted a freedom for the society to pick, to actually these kind of consumers, they have the rights to actually pick these tech companies that they wanted, even though they are the same, but because they linked, they have the rights to actually pick what they wanted and give the freedom towards them, and not just the right of having the chance to do that, but also the freedom for the society itself. And then the opposition side stated about they will create a big companies to actually control these little companies, but what they're stating is actually not bringing harm but actually bringing good, just like what the reasons that I've already stated in the past. And the evidence that I have to support my argument is that first, we see nowadays is that TikTok is and Musical.ly have already merged and become a better applications because of their merges like that. And we can see the difference between TikTok in the past and also TikTok right now in nowadays society. They have become famous because of what they're capable of, because they give the passengers towards the society, because they merged the TikTok merged with the Musical.ly itself and create a tremendous advantage towards TikTok and also for the companies and also for the society's interest to pick what they wanted, right? And also the second evidence that I have is when Instagram linked to Facebook, even though they are the same companies and they provide a beneficial they provide the same companies and they provide a beneficial media for towards their consumers, and when they're supposed to be competitors, and because they linked and create a healthy competition for the both company itself, because they link towards each other, and this has resulted people to actually have access to both application. And even though they are the same companies who actually bring social media, but it will create the best application because they can actually do with this first application and also towards the second application to pick what they wanted itself. And therefore, within conclusion, that is could create a better thing for the consumer, because it gave them the rights to have a choice and the rights to having a freedom in social media or doing in the internet. And now moving on to my second argument to support my goal is that it could actually be an advertisement for the tech companies, because they do mergers and acquisition, not just going to be advantage for the little companies but also for the big companies itself. And my reason for stating that is that when a companies or do a cooperation or do mergers and acquisition towards another company, even though they're little companies, this resulted that a great impact for the small companies to actually be known by the society, because of these big companies that have actually been known by the society, and this makes the smaller companies as their place to do these advertisement and create a big income for them also. And also for the big companies, it will bring them a big income, and which is why create an advertisement for the tech companies and gives the most income to another companies itself. And within conclusion towards these arguments is that my goal in this debate is to prove to you that mergers and acquisition are actually beneficial, by stating that tech companies will create a better innovation and as a resource or an advertisement for the little companies, and for the society it will create a better link for the internet from one application to another and gives freedom or chance for people to having what they wanted. And for the argument to support my goal is that they could create a better rights for their consumers, and we see in moral this is create the best decision for the society, so like what I've explained. And also my second argument to support is that it could actually be advertisement for the tech companies and became a big income for the biggest companies. And that was my case. Thank you.